Welcome back to Vintage Camera Digest. Today we're headed back to, well, we're not headed back to any place at all. We're going to stay confidently in the present and attempt to find out if modern LED lighting technology, specifically the Zhiyun MOLUS G300, has a place or is even relevant to film photography. So stick around. One of the most attractive aspects of digital photography is the flexibility concerning ISO. To me, this is the one thing that really sets it apart from film photography. With film, we're stuck with only a few choices, and those choices are mostly in the 100 to 400 ISO range. There are higher ISO films to choose from, but to go much higher than 400, your image is risking being adversely affected by grain. Now, grain isn't necessarily a bad thing. A lot of us enjoy having some grain in our shots. It is the thing that separates film photography from digital, after all, and we like it for the different aesthetic it provides. But for me, the grain we get from ISO 400 film is plenty enough to capture that film look. And again, this is just my preference. There are several good ISO 800 films out there, and we might be a little more amenable these days to that amount of grain. But I'm old school, as if that even needed to be said. And back in the day, our real-world choices for the best photos were 400 ISO and below. And yes, I know we could push process ISO 400 film to reach 1600 or higher, but you're not changing the ISO of the film by doing that. You're really just increasing the density of the highlights. If a shadow area of your image isn't bright enough to record at 400 ISO, it's not going to magically appear by overdevelopment. Anyway, I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole for this episode. What I really want to talk about is whether or not modern LED technology has a place or is even relevant for film photography. So let's talk about lighting and explore that rabbit hole instead. So LED technology started making real waves in the industry a little over 10 years ago, and we went from this to this, the modern LED monolight, and the perfect solution for us hybrid creators, those photographers who also shoot video, or those filmmakers who also do photography, because this form factor allows us to use all the same lighting modifiers for both jobs. Power output from LED monolights isn't as much as flash or strobe, but remember that digital cameras have a lot of flexibility and are able to produce fine images at relatively higher ISOs. But are these fantastic new lights powerful enough to accommodate film? Or more specifically, film with an ISO no greater than 400? Because if you remember, ISO 400 is what I consider my personal limit for grain and sharpness. Well, the folks at Zhiyun reached out to me to see if I'd be interested in taking a look at one of their high-powered LED monolights. As a video creator, I'm quite familiar with their gimbals. I own the Weebill S and the Crane 4, the latter which effortlessly flies my Canon C70 even when mounted in a Tilta cage. I don't know much about their lights, but looking at the specs of this one, I can certainly see the benefit of having a light like this in my arsenal. But since this channel is about film photography, I suggested that I approach it from that perspective. And they were like, sounds good. So here we are. This is the Zhiyun MOLUS G300. It is a 300 watt bicolor monolight style chip on board LED with a Bowens mount that makes it extremely flexible when choosing modifiers. It also includes an umbrella mount if you want to go that route. By the way, in case you're wondering, this little tripod stand isn't part of the kit. I just repurposed it from my Crane 4 gimbal. But anyway, the G300 boasts a color rendition index, or CRI, of 95. And a television lighting consistency index, or TLCI, of 97. Using the TM30 method of measurement, it has a fidelity index of 94 and a gamut index of 101. And these are excellent numbers and indicate that the images creating using this light will be neutral in color and appear natural with no need for color correction. Now, the first thing you might notice is how small the head is compared to other LED monolights. That's because they've chosen to separate the head from the control unit. And I think this is a great idea for at least two reasons. The first is that it reduces the weight of the part of the unit that's going to be on top of a potentially tall light stand, and probably with a modifier attached. A monolight with a big softbox can be a bit top-heavy. The second reason is that you won't need to lower the stand if you need to get to the controls. The cable between the control unit and the head is 10 feet or about 3 meters, so you can put this thing on a pretty tall stand and still have no trouble accessing the unit. So let's take a look at those controls. Besides the on-off switch here, all the features of the light can be accessed with these two rotating dials. The default setting of the unit is CCT mode. In this configuration, you're able to adjust the brightness and color temperature. The left side dial controls the brightness of the unit. Rotating it gives a continuously variable power output from 1% to 100%. Pressing the center of the dial, however, will allow you to cycle through some presets, which are 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, and 100%. The right side dial controls the color temperature. Rotating this dial will run the unit through the entire color range of 2700 to 6500 Kelvin in 100 degree increments. Alternatively, you can press the center button to cycle through presets of 2700, 3200, 4300, 5500, and 6500 Kelvin. Now, when considering its usefulness in film photography, the really important thing to me is going to be power. And in the power department, this thing has a unique feature called Max Extreme Mode. It can be overclocked from 300 watts to 500 watts. Now, I'm not entirely sure what overclocked means in this sense, but it does significantly increase the output. And to enter Extreme Max Mode, press the center buttons on both dials and hold for 2 seconds. Regardless of how you have it set, the unit jumps to 100% brightness at 4300 Kelvin, which is the brightest combination. Then you can cycle through the presets or adjust the dials to tweak to what you need, all the while still being in that overclocked 500 watt mode. Since its default mode is not overclocked mode, I'm guessing that there's a catch when using it this way. I'm also going to guess that the catch is the potential to overheat. So we'll definitely check this out and see what happens, because I haven't used it on a shoot yet. I've only played around with it enough to get familiar with the functions. Now, as easy as these controls seem to be, you can get an even finer level of adjustability using the ZY Vega app. It connects to the unit via Bluetooth and will let you control multiple Zhiyun lights at the same time. So let's go through the steps of using the app. The first thing you'll need to do is power on your light. Open up the app and create a set by tapping the blue plus button at the bottom right. You can give your set a name and pick a color for it, and now tap that set to get to the next page. Here's where you'll add a device. Click that blue plus button in the upper right, and once your device is found via Bluetooth, click the little circle next to the device and click Add. You'll then get a message when it's added successfully. If your device doesn't show up or if the app fails to connect, the first thing to do is make sure you have Bluetooth enabled on your smartphone. And once you confirm that it is and it's still not connecting, you may need to do a Bluetooth reset on the unit itself. And you can do this by pressing the button in the middle of the dim control dial 3 times. And after the reset, the unit will confirm it on the LCD screen. But once it is found and added, tap Done, and you'll be directed back to the set, and the G300 will appear in the device list. Now, there are 3 icons to the right of the device name. The one on the extreme right gives you specific information about the light. If we tap this, we get a new window showing the device, what firmware it's running, options for renaming device, and notifications for software updates. And wouldn't you know it, in this case, the little red dot is showing that we have an update available for the firmware. Tap that and you're taken to the firmware update page. Tap the upgrade now to start the update. Now, this only took about a minute to complete, but when finished, tap Done, and this will take you back to the set or page that lists your devices. The control unit also has a USB-C connection where you can connect it to a computer to do the firmware upgrades, but I think the ability to do it from the app is really a nice feature. Now, let's look at the controls. To access the G300 controls, just tap on the device, and here's where you'll find all the information regarding output and color temperature of the unit and sliders for each one. I'll also point out that even though you can access the color and output controls on the control unit itself, which is good, you have an even finer level of control through the app. In the app, the output power is adjustable in 0.1%. On the control unit, it's adjustable in full percentage steps only. As for color adjustment, using the slider on the app allows for adjustments in 50-degree steps. On the control unit, it's adjustable in 100-degree steps. But below the color slider are a series of presets, and you can choose between daytime, tungsten lamp, modeling light, dysprosium lamp, fluorescent lamp, sunlight, and xenon lamp. And since I'm going to be using daylight balance film for this shoot, I'm going to choose the daytime preset of 5600 Kelvin. But as you do change the color temperature, the bar across the top of the screen will change in color to give you an idea of the overall warmth or coolness of the light that's based on your selection. Also, right beside this is a blue power switch that will put the light into sleep mode. Pressing it again will bring it back up to power. So far, we've been using the app in the default CCT mode. But if you're used to working with color gels to correct for color or for effect, you can choose CCT gel mode at the bottom. This will bring up a new window where you can choose from either tungsten-based or dysprosium-based lighting as the source. Then you can tap either the CTB or CTO gel densities to adjust the color. And again, as you're doing this, the bar across the top will give you a representation of the color of the light as you make those adjustments. So let's start with the tungsten source with no gel. Now let's add the different gels. We have full CTB, 3/4 CTB, 1/2 CTB, 1/4 CTB, and 1/8 CTB. So now let's move over to the dysprosium source with no gel. Now let's add full CTO, 3/4 CTO, 1/2 CTO, 1/4 CTO, and 1/8 CTO. And there's one other function I'll mention while we're right here. If you tap the CCT pair icon at the bottom, you can align the center marks on an area lit by a fixture with an unknown light source and color temp. You tap match and it will tell you the color temperature as well as set the unit to match it. Very, very cool. Now, if you're going to use this light for video, well, it's got even more tricks up its sleeve. You can move it from the default CCT operating mode to the effects mode by pressing and holding the CCT button for 2 seconds. This is really useful for filmmaking when you need to imitate certain lighting effects like firelight, lightning, explosions, fireworks, TV light, paparazzi, and stuff like that. You can use both control wheels to adjust the parameters of each effect. Being able to access the effects from the control unit itself is pretty handy. With some other lights, the only way to access the effects is through the app. That being said, with the G300, the only way to access the effects is through the control unit. It would be nice to have it both ways though. Maybe that's something we could see in a future upgrade to the app. We'll see. Now, of course, this channel isn't about creating videos, even though I do create videos on a regular basis. But for now, let's go put the G300 to use on a film photo shoot. And I'm going to be using my trusted Bronica S2A for this. And just as a reminder, the goal is to be able to make good use of it at ISO 400. So I'll have one back loaded with Portra 400 and another loaded with T-Max 400. So let's go shoot. Right. So we are here. We have this nice light set up here, and we're looking at the MOLUS G300 and whether or not it is suitable for film photography. And if you recall, my parameter for that, or my requirement for film photography use, is going to be, can I shoot 400 speed film and use this as a light source? And just for kicks, we're going to use this Bronica S2A to do that, because why not mix some of the new tech with some of the older tech? And this is one of my favorite cameras anyway. You probably already know that. So I have, for the first time on this channel, set up a portrait session. And so it's really cool and really scary at the same time because we're doing this on camera. But right now we have Brittany is going to be our model for this. Brittany is an instructor of writing at the local university, good friend of mine, talented musician, and has volunteered almost willingly to be a part of this. So let's all thank Brittany for this. I have a roll of Portra 400, so we're going to shoot color, and I also have a roll of T-Max 400 that I'll pop in every once in a while in a different back. So that's what the cool thing about having the Bronica S2A is that I have backs that I can interchange. All right, so let's get this. I've got the 75mm normal lens on first. I do want to get some tighter shots a little bit later. Now, metering, how are we going to meter this? Good question. So I'll use my spot meter.
And what I'm shooting for, since this is a portrait, I don't have to have an f-stop of f11 or f8. I really want something around 5.6, 4 to 5.6 for this. I'm going to shoot at a shutter speed of 1/60th of a second because I think that's probably our low threshold. I have the MOLUS G300 in a 48-inch softbox with a grid. I have a backlight in a 36-inch softbox with a grid, so that's helping control spill. And I have a silver reflector kind of filling in the shadows on the shadow side. I am going to meter off a skin tone on the highlight side. And if I use the zone system, that should put me at about zone 6. So let's see what we get with that. So that's giving me f8 at 60th of a second at ISO 400. So to put that in zone 6, I would need to set my exposure to 5.6 instead of f8. So I'm gonna do that. But I'm also going to bracket a little bit. I'm shooting color negative film, so I'm going to overexpose just a little bit as well. Now, I forgot to mention, I have the MOLUS here, G300, in overclocked mode right now. So it's running at 500 watts power, and the fans are on, and they're not terribly loud, but I can hear them. When I'm not in overclocked mode, shooting at 100%, I can't even tell that the fans are on at all. I mean, it's almost silent. So the fan system, the Dynavort fan system that Zhiyun has created for this is really quiet. But I have had this at 100% overclocked, sitting now for about 20 minutes. So the fans have kicked in. It's not as quiet as it was before, but it's still pretty quiet and not any louder than any other LED monolight that I have for sure. All right, so what did I say? We had 1/60th of a second at f5.6. So let's go make some photos. So what I want to do, that was the pose that we looked at, right? A little bit of lean on that elbow there. And if you will tilt your head slightly that way. All right, so I will give you a count of 3 so you won't blink, right? All right, f5.6 at 60th of a second. And 1, 2, 3. All right, if you will brush the hair back out of your eye just a little bit. There we go, that's good. Very good, and we'll do that again, just like that. And at 160, 1, 2, 3. Very good. All right, so I want to move the reflector in just a little bit. Fill in the shadows just a bit. I also would like to see if we could get you to face this light turn your head just slightly toward there. And you know, I think in order to do this, we're gonna need to flip sides with the hair. All right, so then you can sort of tilt your head this way. Yep, just like that. That is a good angle there. Okay, and 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to do that same pose, and I'm going to overexpose. I'm going to F4 on this. And 1, 2, 3. Thank you for not blinking. So that's our preliminary kicking off the roll of film pose. Got to get that out of the way. So next, since Brittany teaches writing, and we are in front of this magnificent bookshelf that her husband built, let's put some books in there and let's come up with a different pose. All right, okay, so hand right there, that's good, that's excellent. Do not move. Are we recording? Yes, all right, good. So moved on to another pose. We have added some books into the shot this time because we're trying to give it some meaning, right? So a portrait is about the person. Yeah, we can make it look good with lights and shadow and all of that, but a portrait should reflect some of your subject. And sometimes we forget about that. So here we have, trying to make this relevant with the books. You said there was some, what's the significance of the books?
It's my grandmother's Girl Scout handbook from 1949. So she was, I guess, 10 or so. But it's super neat. It's got all kinds of little illustrations. It's a really neat one. And the cover is really cool with it.
It is cool.
These are all family books.
All right. Thank you for that bit. Okay, so we're finding that spot. You know, we had it perfect, and then I asked you about that, and then, yeah. That's good though. All right, so we're ready to go for a couple of the shots. We're still at 1/60th of a second at 5.6. Make sure we're good and focused here. Good. All right, and 1, 2, 3. If you will brush the hair out of your eye just a little. Yeah. Very good. Perfect. Let's do that again. I'm going to overexpose a bit. Now we're going to F4. And 1, 2, 3. All right, so the pose with the hand, I like that. So I'm going to change lenses. I'm going to change lenses to I'm going to try the 150 millimeter lens instead of the 75. Get a little bit tighter, and we'll go from there. All right, so I've changed lenses. Got the 153.5 here. We've changed the light just a little bit. I'm actually bringing it a little bit more toward the side instead of the front, and that's going to give us some shadow, some light shadow over on the shadow side. And we get a little bit of Rembrandt lighting because we've got that little triangle on the cheek. So we're going to do a few like this. And I'm going to go 1/60th of a second at F4. All right. Now find that comfortable pose again. That's good. All right, and here we go in 1, 2, 3. Let's do another one just like that. I want to make sure I have it focused nice and sharp. And 1, 2, 3. So it's a good question for everybody. When you're taking pictures of people, do y'all count? Do you count 1, 2, 3? Do you count 3, 2, 1? Do you just not count? I think I have counted to 3 several 100,000 times in my career, and I don't know if it's necessary or not. Is it helpful or not?
I think I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure.
Some people anticipate and they'll blink at 3. Sometimes that is, yeah. You haven't done that though, so good. Okay, we're going to throw some black and white film in here and do the same pose. So I've got T-Max 400. So there's no adjustment in the settings necessary. All right, let's find that pose again. Very good. All right, and 1, 2, 3. And once more, just like that. And 1, 2, 3. Something that I have been wanting to try, I have the 200 millimeter f4. Now that lens does not focus close at all. I think the closest focusing distance of that is about 20 feet. I have no idea how many meters that is. Somebody can Google that, let me know. But I have the close-up filter made specifically for that lens, and I'm going to see if I can get tighter than I can with the 150. So I'm going to change lenses again and go to the 200. I'll tell you right now, this is the way to do this. The 200 millimeter with the close-up filter specifically for it. It is a nice head and shoulders, almost face-only type of closeness. All right, that works great. All right, so we are at 1/60 second at f4, so we are wide open with this lens, and I didn't count, and you did fine. It didn't matter. Good. I'm gonna go to 5.6 and 3, 2, 1. Very good. Now let's change that back to the color film and do the same shot. All right, 1/60 second at f4 and 3, 2, 1. So we've changed up the pose just a little bit. Now we're doing some standing. It's still showing off the books in the back, and this nice vintage dress, by the way, from the 1940s. Think so? All right, cool. All right. So we are doing a period piece here today. You remember where we were? Sort of. Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right, and a little bit of a smile is good. Smirk, maybe. I didn't count. Let's do one more there. All right. All right, and 1, 2, 3. Very nice. That's one roll of film. Put the black and white on and do a little on that. All right. We are at the same pose there. Shoulders this way just a bit. Yep. And eyes toward the camera. Good. All right. We're still going here. We got the T-Max 400 in. We are at 1/60th of a second at F4. And 3, 2, 1. Wait. Gotta wind it first. That always helps. Good. Didn't count because you seem to be into that time. It was a natural smile. Good. All right, so we're gonna shut this part of it down, and Anthony's gonna join us for a few shots as well. So now we have Anthony out here, and we've rearranged the lighting just a little bit. Still using the same background because it's a cool background. I don't want to squander that. I'm going to shoot at a little lower angle. You can get into a comfortable pose. And we'll do this. If I do the same sort of metering that I did earlier, I don't expect this to change any. And it's not. So 1/60th of a second at F8. If I want to move that to zone 6, I need to move that to 5.6. We're still using Portra 400, but right now I have the black and white in, so let's go ahead and get a couple of shots with the black and white first. All right, that comfortable there. Yep. All right, very good. And 3, 2, 1. All right, and again, just like that. 3, 2, 1. Right, that will be close to the end of that roll. We got a couple of shots left though. Let's change over to the Portra 400. So same pose, we are going with a color roll now. Channel the whatever it was you had going on. Yeah, that's it. And 3, 2, 1. Very good. That was at F4. Let's go 5.6. And a little bit of smiles, all right. Yep. And 3, 2, 1. Very good. All right, so now let's change up the pose. I think we need to get the Gibson in there somehow. All right, we're back on. Got the Portra 400 in, new roll. We got a little bit of different pose here. We've got the guitar. Anthony is an excellent guitar player. Heck, these folks are great songwriters, musicians. A pleasure to know, actually. And they let me do stuff like this, so not everybody's so kind. All right, that's good there. 3, 2, 1. Let's do that again. 1, 2, 3. All right, earlier you were looking down as you were playing. I would go ahead and play a little bit. All right, hold that right there and look at the camera for just a second. Yep. Keep your face this way just a little bit more. Yep. Down at the camera, chin down just a little bit. Yep. Good. All right, little bit of a smile this time. Excellent. All right. Very good. And 3, 2, 1. Looks good. Let's go with F4, same thing, same sort of pose. Head this way just a little. Good. And 3, 2, 1. Good. All right, I am going to swap over to the black and white one more time. All right. So as you have your arm resting on the guitar like that, I still think head turned that way just a little. Yeah. Yep, just like that. Chin down just a bit. And go. 3, 2, 1. Good. And one more time there. 3, 2, 1. There we go. I'm gonna go back to the 200mm f4 for one tight shot, and I think that's about all we've got. I don't think there's another shot left on the roll. But what I wanna do, I wanna go back up to a normal height. All right, so this is like a really good shot. All right, eyes right here. Head a little bit like you had it. I mean the other way, yep, just like that, good. That's magazine cover right there, buddy. All right, so we got 2 rolls of Portra 400 shot, 1 roll of T-Max 400, and this was a lot of fun. So really appreciate you and Brittany hanging out for doing this. This was really cool because you gotta have a lot of patience to deal with all of this stuff. So we'll go back, we'll take a look at it, and then I will sum up what I feel about the G300. I'm gonna tell you already that it's really nice being able to see the light that you're actually using to shoot with, rather than using a strobe where you have to sort of guess, you test, you guess, you test, and you have to go back and forth. Seeing what you're getting is really nice. So yeah, so you can't really beat that. And we were at 60th of a second at f4 and some f5.6, and the f4 was just because I wanted to fudge the exposure a little bit just to make sure it was working okay. A little overexposure never hurt anything. But yeah, it's been in overclocked mode for now, what, about an hour? It hasn't shut off, the fans are going. I was thinking I like the light. But anyway, we'll go wrap up. I'll see you back there.
Well, there you have it. A successful photo shoot using film and an LED monolight. No push pricing or longer than usual exposures necessary. However, I suppose I could say it would be more successful had I not missed focus on a few of those shots. Is it as flexible as a monolight strobe? Not in terms of sheer power, but I was able to use it in a softbox at f5.6 and f4, and that's about what I'd normally shoot for in that situation. If you want to use it as a hard light source with the standard 7-inch reflector, you'll have more than enough power for most needs, I think. And besides being sufficiently powerful, what it excels at is letting you light a shot and feel confident that what you see is what you're going to get. Now, let's talk about fan noise. This thing stayed in overclocked extreme max mode for almost an hour, and the fans did run a little louder than in normal mode. But to me, they only seemed about as loud as any other light running in normal mode. When I put the G300 into normal mode, it's absolutely the quietest fan I've ever heard, or haven't heard. Zhiyun calls this their Dynavort technology, and I think it's pretty amazing. And it might be worth mentioning that the Amaran 100D that I was using for the backlight overheated and cut out midway through the shoot. So Zhiyun's cooling technology seems to be pretty efficient. Now, I've used strobe flash for studio portraiture for the last 35 years, and while I do enjoy having that kind of power available, I seldom use those units at full power, and there are some shooting situations where strobe flash just isn't suitable, like when your subject might be overly sensitive to the flash. I've seen babies, kids, and pets react negatively to that, so having a powerful LED like the G300 in your lighting arsenal is not a bad idea. Now, obviously for this episode, I've been using the light for a relatively niche purpose, and for this, we've really only been looking at output power. We haven't made much use of its other capabilities, but if you're a hybrid shooter like many of us are these days, creating video content as well as photography, the G300 is an excellent tool. It's small, powerful, flexible, controls are easily accessed either through the app or through the unit itself, and it's at a very attractive price point, which is $599. There are more powerful LED monolights out there, but they don't compete at this price point. With the G300, you get an excellent build quality, a quiet cooling system, intuitive controls up to 500 watts of power, and the option of app control. And with the Bowens mount, there are literally hundreds of modifiers out there that will fit it. The only semi-negative thing I'd have to add is that the effects aren't controllable via the app. But I don't really see this as much of a problem since the separate head control unit design puts the controls in easy reach, not at the top of a very tall light stand. So thanks for watching this mashup of old and new tech. I'm glad these things can coexist, and as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, so be sure to leave a comment. If you've really enjoyed the video, you can always click that super thanks button down there and buy me a roll of film. I will certainly appreciate that. Also, before I forget, the high resolution images from this shoot are available to view at a link that I will put down in the description, so be sure to check those out. Now, I'm going to be doing a bit of traveling in the next few weeks, so I'm going to be a bit off my schedule, which is already a bit off of my original schedule, but I'll be shooting film all along, so I hope I'll have some nice photos to share when I get back. And of course, there's still a lot of good stuff in the queue. And finally, this channel has just turned 1 year old, and just this past weekend, we hit 5,000 subscribers. So I want to give a heartfelt thank you to everyone who's decided to come along on this film photography journey with me. Thanks for all the comments, the likes, and the emails. Y'all really do keep me motivated. So until next time, put some film in your favorite old camera and create. I'll see you soon.